So Jen just stormed into the room and said, hey, what are you doing? I'm gonna explain to you guys what I'm doing. So this is a BGA 95E. This is a piece of EVA, it's a Fuji piece. And what I'm doing is I'm setting up heat shrink. My heat shrink, I'm gonna grab black. The heat shrink adds a little bit of girth to this grip. So what I'm doing is sanding it down so that when I go and install the heat shrink over the EVA, I don't have a lip. I wanted it to be as flush as possible. So I still need to sand this a little bit because I know it adds about 1 millimeter. So I'm gonna put this back on the drill, sand it down some more. I have a feeling that's gonna be the right amount. I know that I can get EVA pre-shaped like this. I've had a couple of people suggest that to me. I'm gonna go a little bit more. I also have to do it on the back end. For the time being, I have a whole lot of these grips. So until I run out of them, I'm gonna keep sanding this down. So now what I'll do, here you can see there's a little tiny lip there on the top and bottom. So what I do now is I put some Pro Paste, I make it black with my marbling pigment, and I put some Pro Paste on here. I'll use my heat gun, and I'll heat shrink that on right on there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my piece of EVA. I like to cut it a little bit big because this stuff does shrink, so I cut a little bit bigger. I'm gonna mix my Pro Paste real fast. I really don't need that much. Just a little bit of part A. And a little bit of hardener. Same amount, 50-50. Mix it up. Clean my stick. Dip it in my black marbling pigment. A little bit goes a long ways. You really don't need that much. And look at that, it turns black. Next step. Slide that on there on my 3/8 inch mandrel that I got at MudHole. Go ahead and paint that on. They have these in all sizes. I think you can get them down. Actually, this is a 1/4 inch. You get 1/4 inch, 3/8, and you can get a 1/2 inch. And I think they even have a 5/8. Not 100% sure, but they have a whole lot of stuff and a lot of choices. All right, next, I like to do the fish scales pointing down. So typically I like to be an even amount on both sides. You can see the front end and the back end. And now I'll go ahead and fire up the heat gun. This thing gets hot pretty fast. And you could put this in a chuck, you could put it in a drill. I just do this by hand. I feel like it's the quickest. That way I'm not loosening everything and tightening everything. So it's pretty hot. So I'll start from the top end first. And I'll get that in, and that's gonna hug the arbor. And I just twist it with my hands like this and work my way down. This is the Pro Paste, this is the fast set. I believe it sets up in 30 minutes? Yeah. Back around. So that's about done. I'll let this set up for another 10 minutes. And then what I do is I'll take a razor blade and I'm gonna cut right here, and I'm gonna cut on the back end, and then I'm gonna sand it and clean it up with probably some 300 grit. And it's gonna sit perfectly flush to this ECSM reel seat. The ECSM reel seat, I know that all over they say this is a size 16. This diameter is actually a tad bit smaller than it is on an ACSM. So that's why I like to sand every single one individually, because they are 2 different sizes. So this is MudHole's, I think it's the RBS Pro G2. This is a brand new power wrapper. I think it won product showcase at ICAST last year.
2 years ago.
2 years ago. 2022. And I was gonna get a lathe in here, but I figured if I really needed to wrap a rod and had the other wrappers occupied for whatever reason, this thing has so much power that I could shape grips on it too. So I really, I don't do that much handle turning or wood turning or whatever to get a lathe, so we ended up getting this bad boy, and I'm just gonna turn it up real quick and show you guys how much power this thing has. It's pretty impressive. It's a lot of power. You can sand that thing down in less than a minute, I'm sure. All right, guys, I just sliced the ends off, nice and clean. Now take some, this is 350. Take some 350 grit sandpaper, and I'm just touching up that leading edge, and I'll show you in a second what it looks like when it's touching the reel seat. Same thing on this end. I'm gonna have a winding check kissing this. I've done a million of these, so I know pretty much when it's gonna fit flush, and that looks like shit. All right, so I measured that a little wrong. Everybody makes mistakes. So what I did was I cut a little bit more because this kind of flanges out. Now it'll fit a little bit better. That is more of the look we're going for. Once I get this reamed out, you'll see that that's a lot more flush of a fit. My goal, whenever I ream these handles, is to always get the bottom side of this reel seat flush with the grip. That way you have a smooth transition right here, because that's where your fingers rest when you're holding the reel. And at the end of the day, when you are fishing for a really long time, comfort is key. So get ready for the next step. All right, now my glue's all set up. Grips are cut on each end. Everything is measured, everything is nice. Now I'm gonna ream out my handles. Go up one more size on the reamer. I know I need to go about halfway down on this particular build. Maybe about right there, should be good. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna take my rear grip, slide it down the rod blank. Looks like I reamed it enough. I'm gonna grab a winding check real quick. And because of the way that these winding checks are manufactured, there's always like a little nipple on the bottom side, and I don't like how it doesn't sit flush, so I always remove the nipple. Slide the winding check on there, slide the grip down. I gotta get my tape measured, but typically I do these, this is gonna be a 7.4 heavy fast frog rod. I'll do the handle length at 11 inches. This is probably like 10 3/4, but let's just say that's 11. Take my reel seat, ECSM 12.5, slide that down the blank, and we're gonna rotate it until we get as flush as possible. As you can see, that bottom side is super flush. So once I glue this in place, I always use a little bit of EVA dust and I pack that, and it's gonna feel super smooth all the way around. And that is how we heat shrink grips. Another clip right here, the attention to detail that counts. So I sand the very edge of that with that 350, and it's a super clean look with that winding check. This is before I glued it. But again, I'm gonna use that black epoxy. Well, I'm gonna use the black marbling pigment with my Pro Paste, and it's gonna give it a super clean look.